What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue our 2023 schedule preview / projected records for the 2023 college football season. We continue them with the Wisconsin Badgers. Here's the schedule last year for Wisconsin. The overall record for this team last year going 7-6 overall. You look at who they played in the non-conference. They played Illinois State, Washington State, and New Mexico State, so they didn't really have a tough non-conference schedule, but they did lose one of those non-conference games. Of course, they played Washington State out of the Pac-12. That was probably one of their toughest non-conference games from last year. And you look at who they played outside of the Big Ten West. They played Ohio State on the road, which they pretty much play Ohio State almost every year. Michigan State on the road as well. And then they also played Maryland at home, so they got one out of those two games out of the Big Ten East at home from a year ago. At least they beat one of those Big Ten teams. That was Maryland at home. Other than that, Wisconsin picked up some, quality wins on the season, but kind of a disappointing season last year for this Wisconsin team, a team that, had a lot of expectations, pretty much high from last year. But I think this year, a little bit higher. I mean, Luke Fickell coming in and also some transfers coming in for this Wisconsin team. This team has a chance to be pretty good, but how good will they be in Luke Fickell's first year? Will they be able to compete in the Big Ten and maybe get back to that same Wisconsin team like they were once to be? So, but a 7-6 overall record last year for this Wisconsin team. Looking ahead now to 2023, here's the schedule for Wisconsin, and you see who they'll play in the non-conference. They'll play Buffalo on the road at Washington State, so they'll get Washington State once again this year, and this time this game will be on the road. And then they'll get Georgia Southern here. So once again, the non-conference schedule not all too tough. Of course, Washington State will be a tough one on the road. I mean, that game they lost to them last year, so it's kind of a revenge game, but it will be a tough one on the road, a tough place to play. And you look at who they'll play in the Big Ten East this year outside of the Big Ten West, because we know they're going to be playing every single Big Ten West team. They'll play the Rutgers here at home on October the 7th, then they'll get Ohio State at home, and they'll also play Indiana on the road. So you don't have a tough draw this year out of the Big Ten East. At least it's not Michigan, but you do still have to play Ohio State. Good thing you get that game at home. And the Rutgers, obviously, probably not one of the worst teams in the Big Ten from last year, but definitely, close to one of those worst teams from last year. But, yeah, Wisconsin, not a tough draw there out of the Big Ten East. Let's now go game by game now. So they'll kick off the season on September the 2nd against Buffalo here at home. Should be an easy non-conference game for Wisconsin to kick off the year. And then they'll play on the road at Washington State. Again, Washington State beat this Wisconsin team at Wisconsin's football stadium last year. Wisconsin, could that be the case this year? They go on the road and beat Washington State. It's going to be a really tough place to play. Then they'll play Georgia Southern here on September the 16th. Easy non-conference game there. And then Purdue here on the road. A Purdue team with a new era coming in. Obviously, we don't really know what this team is going to look like just yet. But I think this is really shaping up to be a really good game still. So Wisconsin will rather get their bye week pretty early in the season before heading into the month of October. They'll play the Rutgers here at home. Then they'll play Iowa here at home. So you got back-to-back home games here with the Rutgers and Iowa. Iowa obviously coming in with a lot of expectations as well in the Big Ten. Of course, you got Cade McNamara coming in from Michigan. So you got two transfer quarterbacks, going at it here. Of course, we know about Wisconsin's quarterback transfer coming in. And overall, the transfer portal has just been huge for Wisconsin. But for Iowa, they've been really huge as well. So this will be an interesting game here on October the 14th. Then they'll play on the road at Illinois. An Illinois team with high expectations as well coming in. They were a pretty good team last year. Maybe had a chance to win the Big Ten West. And then they will play Ohio State here at home on October the 28th. It's kind of a winnable game for Wisconsin because they'll probably be better by this time. I mean, we don't know what Ohio State's roster is going to look like. I mean, I know the quarterback situation is kind of different for them because C.J. Stroud is gone. So, very winnable game, I believe, for Wisconsin. Indiana on the road on November the 4th. Then they'll play Northwestern and Nebraska here on November the 11th and the 18th. Northwestern, obviously one of the worst Big Ten teams from a year ago, and the Big Ten West as well. Nebraska obviously had a pretty big, disappointing season last year, but they got a new era coming in. So pretty much a lot of these Big Ten West teams have a new era coming in with a new head coaching staff. And then, of course, they'll end things out with Minnesota on the road. So you have a tough place to play there at the end of the season on the road at Minnesota, but some of these games on here on this schedule are very winnable for Wisconsin. The question is, though, how good will this Wisconsin team be heading into Luke Fickell's first year? But that's the schedule for Wisconsin. Again, not too tough of a non-conference schedule, not too tough of a draw out of the Big Ten East, except for Ohio State, which they play pretty much Ohio State basically every year. So now let's get to the projection here for this Wisconsin team, and this is the scale I've been pretty much using throughout these projected records. If it's a 1% game, that's going to stay in the red. These are games where Wisconsin has no chance of winning. 20% games, they'll be about a touchdown underdog. 40% games, about a touchdown in the yellow. 50-50 games, these are games where they can go either way, pretty much games that will stay in the white, that will be back and forth games. 60% games, these are games where Wisconsin's going to be favored by about a touchdown. 80%, couple touchdowns in the blue, and then 90% games will be about more than 3 touchdowns. So yeah, those are games where pretty much, Wisconsin's going to win by blowouts. So we're going to start with the green games here. Games that, Wisconsin's going to win by more than 3 touchdowns. And I got 2 of those on the schedule. I got the 2 out of those 3 non-conference games. I got Buffalo here on September the 2nd, then September 16th against Georgia Southern. I think Wisconsin has no business of losing these games. Even if they were to lose to Buffalo, that would kind of be disappointing. And also, Georgia Southern actually upsetted a Big Ten team last year, and that was Nebraska. So it could really happen, but I think Wisconsin will take care of business between those 2 teams as of right now. We now go to the games where Wisconsin's going to be favored by about a couple touchdowns, and that's 80% in the blue. And I got 2 of those as well on the schedule. I got the Rutgers here on October the 7th, and the Northwestern game on November the 11th. The Rutgers are a pretty average team. They weren't good last year, but you never really know about the Rutgers. I mean, it's really a Big Ten matchup, and I thought about putting this one in the green, but it's a Big Ten matchup. It's really, you never know what can happen when it comes to the Big Ten as well. And then Northwestern, I know they were one of the worst Big Ten teams last year. I could have probably put this one in the green. But it is a new era for this Wisconsin team. We just don't know how good they're going to be. But I think both of these games, I think at least Wisconsin will be favored by a couple touchdowns. 60% games down, games where Wisconsin's going to be favored by about a touchdown in the purple. And I got 2 of those as well on the schedule. I got Indiana on the road and then Nebraska here at home. Indiana on the road is a pretty tough one for me. I thought about putting this one in the 50-50 game. I'm going to stick with it and put it in the purple. I think, Wisconsin will be, better by this time heading into the month of November. And like I said, this is just based off of the teams from last year. Indiana wasn't that good of a team last year. Nebraska wasn't good, but I think this is at least still a purple game because I think Nebraska can make this game competitive. I think that, both teams will be, better by this time, but as of right now, I got them, at least favored by a couple about a touchdown in both of these games. And I think Indiana, pretty interesting game there on the road, is going to be a pretty tough one, but I think Nebraska as well will make it really close. And those are my games where I think Wisconsin will be favored by at least some touchdowns. We now go to the games where Wisconsin's going to be an underdog. I don't have any red or orange games on here, but I do have a yellow game on here, about 40%, that they're going to be a heavy underdog in. And that's the Ohio State game on October the 28th. I think they will be a touchdown underdog just only in this game. Because it's a home game, I think Wisconsin has a pretty good shot of winning this one. I probably would have put it in the 50-50 game, but Ohio State, you can't really predict against them. I know Ohio State loses C.J. Stroud, but I think, they're still going to be that good of an offense this year. But the good news is Wisconsin will be at home. If this was on the road for Wisconsin, I would probably put it in the orange, because I think, that would be a tough place to play if this was on the road. But this time it's at home for Wisconsin, so it's a very winnable game for Wisconsin. I think they do have a chance to be a heavy underdog in this game. It could change by that time, but you never know about it. And I think as of right now, I'm going to put them here as an underdog. And the rest of the games here for Wisconsin on this schedule: Washington State on the road, Purdue on the road, Iowa at home, Illinois on the road, and Minnesota on the road are pretty much games where I think they can go either way. Washington State obviously beat Wisconsin last year. That's why I got to put it in the 50-50 game. Purdue, obviously, they have a new era coming in, but I think this is still a 50-50 game because maybe if this was a home game for Wisconsin, I probably could have put it in the purple, but it's on the road, so it's a really tough place to play. Iowa, obviously, a game that can go either way. Caden McNamara could probably change Iowa's offense a little bit. Illinois on the road, definitely an interesting test there on the road. I thought about putting this one in the yellow, probably because of, being on the road. But I don't know about Illinois this year. I don't really know what the roster is going to look like. And like I said, we don't know what the rosters are going to look like just yet because we're still in early winter and we're not in the spring ball yet. Spring practices don't really begin until March, so we'll know about the rosters until then. But then Minnesota here on the road, a game that I think can go either way as well. This is another game that I probably could have put in the yellow, but I think with this one being in late November, it will be a back-to-back game. So I think all of these games are pretty much 50-50 games for Wisconsin. How many games do I see them winning out of those games? I mean, to be honest, I really only see them winning 2 out of those 5 games. Maybe perhaps they get a win on the road, perhaps against Washington State early in the year. Purdue obviously could be a very winnable game. Illinois. I think all these road games are pretty winnable, but in early September, I probably think they won't have any luck. Maybe in the middle of October in Iowa and Illinois, they could probably get some wins there. And then obviously Minnesota going to be a game that, they could probably win as well. But like I said, it's a new era for this Wisconsin team. There's no telling how many games they'll win out of these 50-50 games. Let's now get to the projected record here for this Wisconsin team. This is not my official prediction. My predictions don't begin until the month of May. And the schedules are still coming out as well throughout, the whole conferences and all that. So if you look at Wisconsin's games that they're favored in and also that Ohio State game they're an underdog in, and if you look at these 50-50 games, the overall projection for this Wisconsin team in 2023 comes out to be 7-5 for 2023. I think 7-5 is a clear projection for this team. I think the only win I see out of that 50-50 game category would probably be the Iowa game because they only get that one at home. Yeah, they got a bunch of road games here on the schedule. Washington State, Purdue, Illinois, and then obviously Minnesota. Those are tough places to play, and it will be really hard for Wisconsin to win them all. So, I mean, if they do win them all, that's going to be a miracle. But if they win half of those games, I think they have a really good shot to have a good season. But I think they do at least get to maybe a bowl game, probably in Luke Fickell's first year. I think best case scenario would probably be 8-4 for this team. Worst case scenario would probably be 6-6. If they go 5-7, that's kind of reasonable because a first-year head coach usually goes that way. But I think in Luke Fickell's first year, they will probably have an average record of 7-5. So we'll pretty much do our predictions in later May and see how this works out. But that's my overall projection for this Wisconsin team. Let me guys know what you think about this team, and also give me your projected record down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.